Christy here with Automation on a Mission, and it is a great day for a new feature Friday. Now, this is a feature that I just sort of stumbled upon myself that I'm like, hallelujah, because not only is it going to make my life easier, but my hope is it's also going to make your life a little bit easier as well. Now, this feature is related to how you go about creating, saving, and sending emails. So let me show you what I mean. And I will say that for some of our, and I want to say it's probably a small handful of our clients, you have encountered issues or errors as it relates to something called a parser error. And what that means is essentially that the system is having a hard time with some piece of code. It can't parse out the information that it needs to be able to take the appropriate action. There is something in there, some kind of a command that's not going to work correctly. And as it relates to email, since we do have a lot of new users, I do want to take a quick minute to explain the difference between campaigns and templates, because we're going to be working in the template section. But I know that for many folks, they're like, what's the difference between a campaign and a template? So I want you to think about a template as a two-way street and a campaign as a one-way street, okay? So when you create a templated email is something that could be used to convert it into a campaign and send it out as an email broadcast, a newsletter, a single one-off email. You get to choose who you send it to, you get to choose when you send it, but it is not a part of a bigger scheme like an automation or a workflow, all right? An email template can also go into an automation. And 90% of the time, both us and you are going to create your emails as templates and then apply them to your workflows and your automations. But when you come in and you create an email as a campaign, all you can do is send it. You can send it out to whomever you want, yada, 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 but you cannot say later on, I want to use the message email that I created as a campaign in an automation. Because while templates can be converted into campaigns, at this time, campaigns can't be converted into templates, okay? So two-way street, one-way street. Now that I'm in the template section, I want to show you my little discovery. So I'm just going to use a blank email template. We're not going to do any sort of styling or anything like that. Now, the parser errors that I've seen in my 4 years of working inside our system typically show up in one of two areas. Number one is going to be when we copy and paste some text into our email and it brings over essentially text that it gets confused as to what it is and it tries to create a hyperlink. So let me show you what I mean. So that's not it. My apologies. Let me try that one more time. And let me tell you, I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how am I going to replicate this for you. And then I'm like, why not replicate how I found it? So this is essentially like a portion of what we send out to a brand new user of Automation on a Mission. And I took the text from the original email, I put it into a Google Doc, I worked it, massaged it, made it amazing, and then here it is. So notice that this doesn't have an underline, this doesn't have an underline, this does have an underline. And this underline suggests that there's an actual email behind here, except there's not. And it doesn't like it. So when I look at my Google Doc, that is not an underline. It's not a hyperlink. It's not supposed to be. But sometimes it will, because it will get confused, because what's happening behind the scenes in terms of the HTML editor of your Google Doc, of your Word doc, doesn't necessarily bring over code that's 100% complementary for the system. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in MailChimp or you're in Constant Contact or you're in Automation on a Mission, whenever you're copying and pasting from one source to another, unless you are using a true text editor, only text, you are always bringing over HTML code that you can't see. And so sometimes that causes confusion where, the look and the feel of what we're building doesn't match, what we think it should, so on and so forth, because what we're bringing over sometimes involves some gobbledygook that shouldn't be in there. So I mention all that just as a sort of disclaimer, but now, so how do I know that this is a problem? So notice up here, and this is our fancy new feature, it's giving me a little alert sign. If I try to save this email, it's going to tell me that I have something that's wrong, and how awesome, if I click on that guy right there, it's going to take me to where my problem is. Now, if this was full of other stuff, what it's going to do is it's going to drive me directly to this one specific element. And so right now it's a little bit lackluster because I don't have a bunch of other content in here, but it specifically says go and find your problem in this particular element. So I'm like, okay, well, what could be wrong? Well, the only thing that looks remotely out of ordinary is I know that my Google content does not have this underline. So I click on it, and looky there, I have a hyperlink. That is not a website. It's also not a way to access somebody's email. So if I delete it, now it is no longer a hyperlink, and I can save my template. Now, in the past, like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, if I would have tried to send this email, it would have given me a parser error. And that parser error is specifically because it's trying to hyperlink to something, but the hyperlink is breaking the rules of what this field requires, which is a functioning, workable website. All right? So that's one way that you might have a parser error. The other place that we frequently see parser errors, and let me see if I can do it from in here, and this feels counterintuitive, I'll be honest. There we go. So I just picked any custom value. So let me go back and do it again. So I go into my merge area. I go all the way down to the bottom. I click on my custom values. Now remember, custom values are the things that are site-wide. So think about them as custom fields, but they're for your entire site. So these values are not applied to a single contact record. They're applied to your entire business. So for example, if you have a specific booking link that you want to repeatedly go back and access, and you don't want to have to remember what the link is, create a custom value for it. Also, it makes it that much easier for you to update. Now, the issue here is notice the formatting of this custom value versus this value up here and the two above it. Notice that there are spaces at the beginning and the end. Interestingly, those two spaces are not going to prevent you from clicking this save button, but they will prevent this email from working properly in an automation. So something to just sort of be mindful of. It's essentially right now a bug in how our formatting is working when we're inserting these merge fields. If you look at your custom values in your custom value settings, it also looks that way, but the proper delivery is going to be to remove those two spaces. So parser error when you have a space here and a space here. Oops, obviously a space there. And parser error when it tries to hyperlink to a section of text that should not actually have a hyperlink to it. All right? As always, let us know if you have any questions and how we can help.